All right, everyone, welcome to Follow Up Boss Office Hours. Really excited for today. We're going to dig into automations and action plans, not necessarily in that order. I already got it backwards. But I'm joined today by Elizabeth Whittaker. How are you, Elizabeth?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to dive into this with you. I think, you have a unique background. You're sort of kind of new to the team, but you have a background of actually doing this in the real world. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Follow Boss and maybe a little bit what you did before Follow Boss.
Absolutely. So I'm Elizabeth. I'm a customer success manager here at Follow Up Boss. So I help with all of our teams in the onboarding process and then also a lot of strategy calls moving forward, working with teams, setting up their account for best use for their daily workflow. And prior to coming to Follow Up Boss a couple months ago, I was actually director of operations for a couple years here in Southwest Florida for a real estate team.
Awesome. I love that. So you have experience using it with a
Yes.
company, and now you do that exclusively. It's very cool.
Absolutely. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to run just a super quick poll just to kind of see who's on. If you guys could answer just quick kind of what role you're in, it helps us kind of design what we cover with you guys. So if y'all could do that real quick as we march along. But ultimately, Elizabeth, like action plans and automations, they're kind of, I don't know, maybe cousins. They definitely work in tandem. But let's cover at a high level what is an action plan, and then what is an automation, and then we'll dive into some of the details.
Yes, absolutely. So they easily get mistaken to be one, absolutely, but they are partners in Follow Up Boss. So action plans are really used for new leads and future leads coming into the system and actually breaking down a plan of what you want it to do, whether that be tasks, emails, and some other different things that we can put in place for that. While automations are there for your existing leads, actually putting those action plans into place with an automation. So what automations do is actually watch over your existing leads and they spring into action the second that trigger is hit.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes sense. I like partners better than cousins. That
Yes,
makes
they
a
work
lot more.
in tandem with each
That's
other.
right.
So
That's right. I dig it. And we've got a really good blend of people on. We've got some solo people, some team owners, some operations type people. So
awesome.
yeah, so really good. So do you want to go ahead and share your screen? I think it makes sense if we do action plans first
Absolutely.
and then automation. So
yes. So let me go ahead here and share my screen. All right. Can you see that, Lee?
yep.
Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to start in our action plans. So under admin into the action plans, this is where all of those plans are going to be housed. We can create different folders depending on different types of organizations when we start to create these. But also if you're just starting out, a perfect place to look is the action plans are already created by Follow Up Boss. So we have about 21 that come standard with each account as default that give you a little sense of creativity and ideas on where to start when building out these action plans. And with all of these action plans here, we can actually go in and completely customize to you and your team. So that's one of my biggest recommendations for every team is just because it's a default in there, add some fluff in there, add some flavor into your team, make it very custom because again, everyone does have these action plans. So let's make them very custom to your team and make them stand out to when they get sent to your clients.
I want to lean into that a little bit, and I probably say this way too much, but I feel so strongly about it. It is so important that you guys do that because your voice, your team model, your location, not totally relevant for action plans, but things like real estate is state by state laws. So it's title state some places, it's escrow, there's a lot of different terminology. And I think you guys have done a great job of keeping these generic enough they work for everybody. But again, by the same token, adding just a little nuance of like whatever your area, a picture, your logo in it, whatever customizes it.
Yes, absolutely. Add those really pretty header and footers that you have on marketing emails. They know, oh my gosh, my real estate team's reaching out to me and they put so much love into these emails to send out to me. They're going to feel so appreciative of these emails that are coming from you that they don't necessarily know this is on a plan. You are not handwriting this every single time. So it adds in that little touch of love from the real estate agent sending out these via action plan.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, again, I know that can seem kind of overwhelming to people sometimes, but doing it once as you're going to go through them or apply them or whatever, it's going to pay dividends. This isn't something that is a full-time job, but just getting them right early is just really, really important.
Absolutely. So I want to walk through on how to create an action plan too. So that's going to be step one, no matter this is going to be going to brand new leads or your existing leads via automation. So how we want to do that, I talked about looking through the library of resources you already have, but actually starting one from scratch. We're going to be under action plans and click plus action plan. And this gives you a blank template to create whatever you would like. So whatever you're dreaming of sending out to your clients, we can create in here. So we can first name what this action plan is going to be. So I'm just going to name it Buyer Long-Term Nurture. There's also an example of this already created in Follow-Up Boss. And then we also have some settings at the beginning before we start mapping out these steps of the action plan. First, we have automatically pause this action plan when the lead responds. So this is automatically checked when you start creating the action plans. And this is really here for exactly this example of a buyer long-term nurture. You're trying to stay in front of the client and you want this to stop once they respond because they're ready for you. You want to interject that conversation and you don't want these continuous emails to keep coming out after you've already talked to them, set an appointment, different type of conversation you've had. You want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we want to have that select for this scenario. We can also have include all email addresses for all steps. So if a lead has a relationship on the lead profile, so a husband and wife maybe, for example, it will send to both of them if that is what your preferred type of communication is. And then share with everyone. So this is going to be sharing with everyone on the team to view what this action plan is. So down to creation, we can add an initial text message the second that this plan starts, or even delay it a couple minutes as well. So for this example, I'm going to take it off. I don't want that exactly for this perfect example we have here. But as we are building our steps, it has one step already created to get you started. So immediately when I run this action plan, I want to send an email to them. So I'm going to just search for a nurture email that is already created. So buyer long-term number 1, and we can also edit that as well. So if there's some type of terminology we want to change or spruce it up, we can do it right from here as well. And then what we can do is start adding on the steps. And you can see where it says immediately when I add an additional step. What we want to do is set the runtime, let's say 30 days from the previous step. And then you can see here, it will edit when that email will be sent out to the client. Now, I know I mentioned emails a lot of this specific campaign, but I want to highlight the additional actions that you can actually do with an action plan. So drip campaign is a huge term in the real estate world. So this is more robust than just a drip campaign. We can do additional actions within here. We can create a task for the agent to maybe follow up in 6 months, give them a call, check on how they're doing in this buying or selling process. We can change the stage, add a note, add tags, remove tags, add collaborators or remove collaborators. So there's additional things more than just sending emails. So we can make this plan a little more dynamic than just your standard drip campaign. So I'm going to add a task.
Yeah.
Here.
Do you mind hopping into, let's look at the different task types super quick. I'm a big fan of this, especially now that you can filter your tasks by type.
Yes, most definitely. So I'll run on the 31st day here as an example. Let's do create a task as the action. We can name that task anything we'd like, anything under the sun, but then we can actually specify what this task type is. So we have follow-up, call, email, text, a showing, a closing, an open house, or even a thank you to the client. So if by any chance you don't type anything in, but you actually select the task type, you know exactly what you're supposed to do in that instance when it auto generates on the lead profile.
Yeah, and speaking of typing things in, which I was probably sure where you're headed, just I always say help your future self by naming this
Yes.
well. Name it like call about listing their house in the fall or something like
Absolutely.
don't just say call them.
Yes, don't keep it on follow-up and then also type follow-up. What are you following up about? Absolutely. That's a perfect way to explain it. Be nice to your future self. They will thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank yourself 6 months from now. And then obviously the agent assigned to the contact is typically what you want. But this is pretty cool because you can do the lender assigned if it's a lender type task. You can assign it to a specific user. For example, if you have a TC or a lead manager or somebody like that, you can then assign that to them. And
yes, no matter who is the original assigned agent on it. Perfect example is that TC. If we're doing some type of post-close plan or under contract plan, even with post-close, you can specify maybe to your marketing director to send out those thank yous. If that's the person that's in charge, you can completely customize who is being notified of these tasks, all still within one lead profile. So it doesn't get muddy with just generalized tasks and no one knows who's doing what.
Yeah, that's great. I love the marketing example too, because that is a, hey, post that just sold or do this other thing. Like these are really powerful things. And I think one of the things I love about Follow Boss, and I imagine you're kind of in the same situation, they are always adding new features and new things. And a lot of us, even if we're power users and have used it for a long time, sometimes new features creep in and we don't always adopt them or update our things. So again, in the name of reviewing your plans, even if you have some you like already, knowing you have the ability to now add some additional things, and these have been out for a while, but just again, speaking to the idea that it used to just be one task, one type. And,
absolutely.
So definitely, take a look at what you've got here and just be sure it's assigned to the right people. The great thing about the agent assigned to the contact is that if you reassign leads or you move people to a pond or things happen, it'll continue to work properly. If you try to do it with a specific agent and then the assignment changes, then things start to get weird.
Yeah, if you're in a 2-year action plan that's staggered quarterly and some reason something happened on the team and client A gets switched from Joe Smith to Jane Smith, it will carry on and this action plan will not be disrupted. It will now default to Jane Smith for any emails sent out or tasks being assigned for that action plan to the client.
Awesome. Love it. And one last tip I like to do, you showed the stage change. I'm a big fan of that. If the plan calls for it. So again, like a lead type of plan, like if they don't respond within 30 days, you can change them to nurture or
absolutely
whatever. So that's a good one. Also to keep your database clean. So you have 20,000 people in lead.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So just because I'm using the nurture one as a quick example, there are hundreds of ideas on how to best use action plans. Doesn't always have to be in front of the client. It could even be in front of the agent, kind of as a reminder piece. So we also have back in action plans, we have Browse Action Library. And this is the hub of amazing agents that have shared all of their wonderful action plans that they've created that are so custom to them, that are different than just the standard email. Coming in here and scrolling through some of the ones that people have created and seeing all the things that you can do. And it really starts to drum up some creativity. I used to do this when I was a user. I was like, where do I start? And I found this action plan library and I just got, my brain opened up. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I know what to do now. Or we can just copy the plan right into the account and edit it a little bit. So either way, you've got a million ideas in front of you to completely customize what these action plans are actually doing for you and your clients, and also on your team side as well, for a little bit maybe more of accountability side.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just be sure that you review them and edit them, because a lot of these do have personalized links to their websites. So you don't
Yes,
want to, I'm sure they would appreciate you driving leads to their website, but you probably want to drive them to your own website or blog or information.
absolutely. Yes.
Cool.
All
That's
right.
great. So we covered how to build them,
Mhm.
how to find some existing ones. Anything else, Elizabeth, on creation of plans before we move into how to use them? Because it's lovely to
Mhm.
have them, but if you're not implementing them, then
Absolutely. I would say while creating the action plans, always have a purpose. Have kind of the ideal scenario in your head of maybe an ideal client or an ideal change you want to happen in the system. Have that in your mind first, and that will drive the creation of the action plan to make sure that it is created properly and will be running in the right way that you want it to in the end.
absolutely. So how do we use these plans once we have them
Mm.
set up and ready?
Beautiful question. So, two ways we can immediately use action plans right after creation. The first way is going to be under lead flow. So we have our hidden source here. Each source has their own settings on what they can do. And what we can do is directly onto a lead source, we can hit action plan and select what action plan we want to start the second a new lead comes into our system. So let's do a new buyer new lead web
There we go. I was saying, I don't even know what's in
registration.
here. It's just a
Yeah.
demo account, but
Yes. So that would be a perfect one to automatically put on after reviewing. And that's going to hit those new leads that are coming in from your lead sources. So there's no manual process of starting that. You created it, let's apply it to lead flow, and it will start working for you. Now, the additional way that we can start action plans is if we actually come to a lead profile and we scroll down a little bit. Oh, I did not pick a good example here.
no, it's fine. We have a lot of plugins and integrations going on.
Yes. So we can come down to the action plan card on the right-hand side and actually hit the plus button and start an action plan right from the lead profile. And also within here is where you can quickly see what has been completed, what is running or paused, and all your prior completion as well.
Awesome. And by the way, not to get off, like, I guess it's kind of my thing to get off topic, but you can actually, if you mouse over this, and anyone can do this, in a minute I want to address the lead flow, that not everybody can access that. You can actually, if you click on the 8 little dots, if you mouse over kind of where it says action plans, you can actually move these up. So if this is something you want to be higher up in your feed, in your contact record, you can adjust this, and it affects only your account. So
Mhm.
you're not going to mess up everybody else's account. But if there are certain things like tasks or action plans or activity you want to see at the top, you can, yeah, it's so hard to drag them into this because there's so many things. But you can move these around. So if you're really action plan focused, or if you want to get yourself or your agents top of mind what action plans are running, you can move them up towards the top. Yeah, we can close task. Let's close task for purposes of remove
Yeah.
it. You can just
Ooh.
collapse it for now, because this guy apparently is quite popular. He's closed. He's a pending long-term buyer. But one thing that's really cool is you can click on the running that shows you it's running to pause the plan. And Troy, I want to get to your question. You have a great question. I definitely want to address live. The other cool thing is if you click on any of them, the names of them, this is actually, I don't know if this is a recent ad or if I just figured it out recently. It actually shows you both the history of what's happened as well as what's upcoming. And even on a paused plan, if you unpause it, see here, it says plan paused. If you unpause
Mhm.
it, it'll pick back up on those steps. So you can easily look
Mhm.
and go, okay, I want to start this one again. So they get those last 2
Mhm.
emails
Absolutely.
to that effect. So
I also like the quick analytics that kind of
yeah,
gives you a
if they
rundown,
hadn't
like,
bounced, we'd see stuff
yeah.
there.
So even here, we know that email's no good. Follow up boss will tell you that, but it's good to also see it within this breakdown of the action plan too.
Absolutely. I love that. And I want to tackle Troy's question because there's a couple of different answers to this, but his question is adding an action plan that includes in-house services and whatnot. Um, Unfortunately, you can't assign an action plan to come from multiple people. However, you can assign it or you can have it go out. You can have a separate step. There's a few ways to do this, so bear with me. For one, in the action plan, you can create a second email that is sent from a signed lender, assuming you're assigning a lender or another
Mhm.
provider in Follow Up Boss automatically. Otherwise, it's not going to know the assigned lender. But you can send a second email at the same time. As I'll stick with the lender example because that's the easiest, kind of cleanest. You can still send a separate email that does come from the assigned lender, introducing themselves. You can include a link to like a pre-approval type of thing. The other, maybe even simpler solution, unfortunately, you can't like CC somebody on an email template and an action plan, but you can include their contact info there. There's a couple of different workarounds for kind of what you're looking to do exactly.
Mhm.
Another thing I would recommend is if you can potentially have those available on your website, and then you're sending a link to drive people to your site, because for one, you get the intel that somebody clicked on it and actually went to it. It's going to activate Pixel if they're on your website, so you can see they looked at other stuff. You could always create a task as well to the lender, maybe via an automation. We'll get there in a minute. But in that same action plan that just says, hey, lender, please reach out to them and introduce yourself. The lender can see the assigned agent. They can say, hey, I see you're working with Bridget. Just wanted to see if you had any questions about the mortgage process. The other thing is you cannot include an attachment in an email, but you can do any sort of web link. So if you had a Google Drive document with your vendors on it or anything like that, for purposes of this session, I don't think we can go too super deep on that, but the short answer is yes, with a few caveats. But I would recommend doing that. Get people in the loop.
Yes. Hmm. Absolutely. Perfect answer.
So, we looked at the auto apply and lead flow. We looked at the manual
Mhm.
apply. Obviously, you can apply via an automation, but we're going to get to that in automation.
Yes.
So, and Elizabeth,
Absolutely.
I think you did a great job of covering content, but I think we have one or two other things within action plans, ways to, I know we discussed other sources of getting good content potentially.
Mhm.
So using like a chat GPT, again, little more advanced stuff here,
Yes. Hmm.
but there are ways to also generate other content to help you create these plans.
Absolutely. Chat GPT is a great resource to be able to generate that content. I mean, we could go deep on that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go down a
I,
little rabbit hole for
I
that.
know.
But doing things like that, linking back to the website and the action plan library, even our help center, if you go in there, there's a lot of recommended and some additional action plans that are sprinkled in there too, for additional resources. Also, I would say the best resource that we have is our Facebook group, because people are constantly just sharing knowledge of what they're doing. And I think that is one of the best tools that you can utilize, and asking questions on there. If you're really stuck with an idea on what you want to accomplish, but you don't really know how to accomplish, that's a perfect resource too, because not everyone, a lot of people are probably in the same boat and are so willing to help out and comment and give you resources.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, good rec. And I'll drop links to those here in just a second. I'll drop links to the Facebook success community to make sure you're in there, as well as a link to a playlist of all of these. office hour sessions, which will include this one when it gets uploaded. All right, let's
Yes.
dig into the automations.
All right. So right next to its partner action plans under admin is automations. Now, same thing as action plans, there is a lot of default automations that are already pre-built for you that are toggled off under the enabled section. A bunch of different resources. Again, we can go into that. There's so much at your fingertips that we can grab at. But I want to go over two examples. One that of the ones that is pre-built in everyone's account to kind of look at what that looks like. What are you looking at? Like, what is this in front of me and how is it going to work? And then also we'll build out a automation as well. So I'm going to find our happy birthday. So under automations, you'll always see on the left-hand side the name of the automation. And then on the right-hand side, what the action plan or action is from that triggered automation. So I'm going to click the happy birthday one. We all love the happy birthday and the jumping dog, and I will show you what that is here in a second. So this automation here, as a quick rundown, is triggered by a calendar date. So this is triggered by the client's birthday, that if it's today, that is that trigger of starting this entire plan here. We also have conditions set that the email is good. So it's not going to send out to any of your leads if their email is invalid or not filled in. And then you see here we have action plan, birthday email on day of birthday, which sends out a happy birthday with a jumping dog. And then one of the most important pieces of this action plan is run multiple times per person, because we don't want this to just run on their first birthday that you are client or real estate agent and client relationship with them. We want to continue that relationship and showing them we're thinking about you. Even though we just closed on your property, I'm still going to think about you 5 years down the road. So let's get into a creation of one so we can explain a little bit more of all of these pieces put together. So I'm going to go back out into automations and add an automation. So we're here with a blank screen. So I am going to use the nurture example again. And first we're going to name the automation. And then we're going to select one of 7 triggers. So this is what is going to happen to start that action plan. So for this example, I'm going to use the stage changed. Now notice we have a lot of options for automation. And so this is where you can have a lot of fun on the back end of the system on what we can really do to spice up the system and level up. So for this example, I'm going to do when the stage changes from any other stage to nurture. Doesn't matter where they were. We've decided because of the conversation we had with the client that they're nurture. They're long time from buying or selling, but we still want to be in front of them. So when the stage changes to nurture, I'm also going to add that condition that email is good. I think it's a great buffer to put in here. Email is good. Hit done. And then we are going to select the action. So what's going to happen when the stage changes to nurture? And so we do have 3 options here: reassign, add note, or action plan. So for this example, we use action plan. And then we are going to select the action plan that we just built out. We'll automatically add that. And then by default, every action plan, if you do not touch it, will only run once per person. Most of the time, that's okay. Given the type of action plan, we want to change this to run automation multiple times per person. So for this one, we can set it that way. And then this would be your full action or automation with your action plan. All we would have to do from here is hit save automation and save and enable. If you're still working on it and you want to still touch a few things, you can still save it and just not turn it on yet. but for this example, we'll save and enable. So you'll see this is turned on, actively working if we were to change any client from any stage to a nurture stage. Rambled a little bit there, but
No, that's great. No, that's great. It's covered all the bases, and it's tough because we have probably some people on who have like never seen this or looked at it, and some people that are like, I have advanced questions, one of which is great, and we're going to get to in a minute.
Okay.
But no, I think it's great to run it all down, and each of these things are super important. Like, and you know, the run multiple times versus once really ties back to your content. Because if it's kind of stock content and they're going to realize they get the same email again 2 years later, maybe you don't want to run it each time it happens. Or maybe running it over and over informs your content, so it's different enough that you're not getting a, hey, I'm just checking in, hey, I'm just checking in, hey, I'm just checking in all the time.
The dreaded I'm just checking in.
Right, just touching base, because everybody loves, you know, for that to happen. But no, I love that you showed through in detail. The only thing I would add to this, which you sort of touched on, you can still have multiple triggers or multiple actions. So if you wanted to say, if the stage is changed to nurture, or in this case, a tag is added or something happens, either of those events could trigger this. And yeah, again, this could be really handy if you say, oh, we have a tag for nurture 2, and some of them choose the tag, some of them change the stage, different things happen different places. And see, you can see at the top, it says start animation when any of these events occur. So it's
Correct.
either, not both. Again, this is where you could use the condition to say, if they're also tagged sphere, don't continue, something crazy like that.
Absolutely.
And then
So let's X that out as you're talking.
And then even in and yeah, again, who knows what tags are actually in here. So fine to just use an existing. And then again, on the action, you can have multiple. So you could reassign it and start an action plan. And reassign includes a lender or a pond as well.
Yes.
So if part of your thing is like, hey, when they go to nurture, we want to move them to a pond so anybody can follow up. It's pretty easy to do.
Yes, I also really love the note section as well. I don't see it utilized that often, but I love the fact that you can add an automatic note onto a client. I don't know why I find that so cool, but I think it is such a cool extra touch.
I'm big on that too, because it's a deeper notification than a task. It actually sends them an email with a link to the contact. You can use merge fields and say, hey, their closing date is coming up in merge field closing date. Lots of cool stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So I love that. And also, if you want to, well, I'm not going to go there yet. But yeah, like you showed, save and enable. If you edit it like this, you're still going to need to save it. It's already enabled in this example, but you're obviously going to want to save it if you make any edits as such.
Correct.
And anything else on building it? Because I want to definitely hop back to the main screen and show the link for the runs. And then we've got a great question I want to tackle. It's a little advanced, but worth doing.
That's okay. I think we're good on building.
Okay.
I mean, we could go deep in conditions, but they're there.
Right. Well, maybe we'll do a 2.0. We'll do a 2.0 automations for people. So if we hit that automations, what's cool is, like Elizabeth said, you can of course see the name of it. So again, name it well. You can see the actions. The times run is absolutely fantastic because you can audit this automation. Number one, you can see how many times it ran. If it's not running crazy on all of your leads, make sure it's not at 4,000 the day after you do it. But even more importantly, you can click on it to see the leads that it ran on. Are they opening these? Is it working? Is it going to the people we want it to go to? You don't have to do this all the time, but especially if you're new, it's a great way to kind of just make sure it's not running crazy.
Absolutely. Also with that, kind of on the other side of this with tracking and purposes, don't want to go too off topic, but all of these template emails that are in action plans, a good way to be able to see, like, are these working, is under the email templates, and knowing which ones are attached to action plans, we can see the full breakdown of analytics of really how well it's doing. Are people opening them? Are they clicking them? Are they replying to you? Or how many people are unsubscribing from that email? That may be like a red flag, like, I need to change content of this email ASAP. because it is not being viewed like I wanted it to the clients.
And frankly, in my opinion, that's the only measure, right? I can't look at your action plan and say, this is a great action plan for you. If people are
Absolutely.
engaging with it and not unsubscribing and they're not bouncing, and back to your point of the condition of email is good, that can prevent bounces, which also help,
Yep.
both your reputation and your scoring here as well on these guys. So
Yes, good point. I know in a perfect world, it would be awesome to have some type of scoring for action plans. It would. But if we think about it a little deeper on the reasons why, there's so many different emails inside of it. So it's really hard to gauge a score per
Right.
se on it because there's so much different content being sent out. So, perfect world there could be, but it just doesn't break down as easily for that. So email templates analytics is the place to be for checking those.
Absolutely. And that goes back to giving them good names, because if it's buyer nurture 1, buyer nurture 2, buyer nurture 3,
you know exactly where they are.
Exactly. Love it.
Absolutely.
So let's tackle Andrew's question, because I really like this, and I know we could go down a deep rabbit hole, but I'm going to give like 2, I think, examples that work here. So his question is, do tasks have the options to be a certain number of days after only, kind of like we showed, or can you say either in this case after a stage change, or after where I'm going to go is actually before a date arrives, because I think that might be a little even more relevant to what he's asking. But absolutely, you can do this. It may be 2 automations though, because it may be stages changed and then X number of days later potentially fire something. You could do it as one, but I'm thinking through some examples in my head where it might make more sense. And again, his question is days after a stage change. The easy answer would be stage change, action plan starts on day 5.
Yes.
That's the easy native. We could just do that. But I get the feeling that maybe what Andrew's asking also is the idea of potentially prior to a date, earnest money due date, or closing in 5 days. As long as you have those dates in your system, they can be a custom field. They can really be anything that's in a date format. So whether that's in your calendar as an appointment, it has to be a date format in Follow Up Boss. But let's keep after where you are. So you can actually say
absolutely, like what you were saying with, if we're talking deal specific, this is newer in the sense of using the deal date custom fields to be able to use in automation for that before after type of time frame, rather than just the custom field date option. So absolutely, anything that's in the system is a custom field, whether it be date or deals or within the lead profile. If it has that date type on the custom field, absolutely, we can start to build this out on a certain time frame in days. But I see where you're going with this, Lee, in 2 separate possibly.
right.
I could see that.
It depends is kind of the short answer, but there's a couple of things you can do here. Like you can automatically trigger, and you can also do like it says here, the default is in. So this is prior to that date. So for example, let's just do the deal proposed closing date just to keep it simple. And I don't know if we actually have any in here, but if you want to be able to send a message, create a task for a TC or ownership or whoever, your trigger can be when the deal proposed date is in 3 days. We'll stick with the 3 because I think that's a universal date for like a CD type thing. So you can save that guy. You might have a condition if it's like stage is under contract or something like that, if that makes sense for your setup, or pending. I don't even know what we have in here. And then the action, then the action could be a number of things. So this is where your options kind of open up. You could add a tag to put it in a smart list. You could add a task. All these via action plans, you could add a task. You could do the note thing we just talked about. Say, hey, TC, do they have the CD because they're closing in 3 days? And you can assign it to that team member specifically.
Yes. And so, ooh,
Yeah, I know it's only teams or yeah, exactly. So again,
in a
depends on
perfect world, if the
other
TC was a
setup.
collaborator. Mhm.
Right. But if it was an action plan, you could select, like we showed before, you could select a
Two.
specific
Mhm.
person. So
For that note, yeah.
I know it's a little convoluted of an answer, but the good news is you've got multiple options
Yes.
with which to do this. Personally, I'm a big fan of, for a lot of things, of doing these as smart lists. So you could add a tag that says closing date in 3 days, make a smart list that says closing date in 3 days. So they're working off that smart list instead of missing a
Mhm.
task or whatever. They're also on the calendar, which you can now filter in this lovely new calendar. You got lots of
Yes.
options.
Yes,
hope
I
I missed-
agree with the smart list. Best answer. I like that too.
So yeah, lots of cool stuff you can do. And seriously, Elizabeth, I think we should seriously do like a 2.0 on this. Let's because
I
we
would automation, action plans and automations are my absolute favorite in Follow Up Boss because they are just so complex, but in a good way. Like,
right.
because it's like looking at stars. There's so many of them, and there's so many cool things you can do. And I personally just can't wait to get a new idea and play with this and see what we can do to make happen in the background.
Absolutely. And so to take us out, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about like overarching strategy because
Mm-hmm.
what we see, and I'm sure you do too, we all work with a lot of people that live in the system and use it. If you don't have a plan, you're kind of like, oh, I saw this webinar, I'm going to build this one automation. Oh, I had an idea, I'm going to do this other one, which is fine. However, ideally, ultimately having more of a strategy around how do these all work together? Let's make sure we're not applying 300
Yes.
action plans to one person,
Mm-hmm.
notes every time anybody does anything. But Elizabeth, what are some tips for people to just, you know, not have analysis paralysis and never do any, but also not just do a bunch that aren't really working together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely like what you said is having a plan in place. And I know that sounds vague. Like, what do you mean have a plan? Where do I start? I like to look at stages. And when people fall into these stages, you're changing them based off of where they are in this pipeline, in their life, of what they're doing. I like to think of stages of what do I want to deliver to the client that is in lead stage? What do I want them to get from me? And I like to go down the stages and figure that out. What type of communication do I want sent to them, or what do you want to happen in each stage? Because they're all different, they're all in a different place. And then from there, write it down what you want. And then from there, you can start really thinking like, okay, well, I want new leads to get hit the second that they come in with some type of intro. Okay, perfect. I'm going to start there. Build everything that you'd like for a lead. And once you really focus on stages first, I know we can talk about tags forever, but stages specifically, that will eliminate the overlap of like too many automations coming into play all at once, especially when you're starting out. It's an easier framework in thinking of how to get started in this giant universe of automations and action plans. So I think that's the best piece of advice. But of course, plan, plan, plan. Like, you know what you want. So think about that. You know what's right. You know what to do. Just think about what type of communication you want to deliver to your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, you know, the other thing too is it's fine to do the one-offs like we talked about or do the stages first. But ultimately, you know, whether it's a piece of paper or you use something like Glue Maps or Lucid Charts or any of the free flow charting things, you can certainly get intricate with it. But you know, again, having that overarching, like, what is the lead's journey? Like when they're new, they get
Mm-hmm.
these things. When they're nurture, they get these things. If they come back on our site, they do these things. So just sketching it out a little bit, and I may get in trouble for saying this, but you probably have either a success manager or you can click on the question mark to get any success manager. They're not going to help you build 400 automations. I'll just say that right up front. However,
Mm-hmm.
as far as ideas and strategy, leveraging your
Absolutely.
success manager, literally people
Yes.
like Elizabeth who do this all day
I
and know
love it.
this,
Yeah, those are my favorite things to do. I have bunches of clients that come to me like, this is what I want to do. I want this to hit this, and that. How do I start? And I'm like, this is awesome.
Do it.
Like, this is what we're gonna do. And then of course they're building it out, but also at the same time, then they're learning
Right.
how the process is actually flowing, and gives them a better sense of when they're working their day. They know exactly what's going to happen because I didn't do it. I just help them with a strategy on how to put it in place.
100%. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of nerdy people, including ourselves, in the Follow Up Boss Facebook community, which I'm about to drop a link to, as well, that love to talk about this stuff and build it. So, you can always post in the group, finding the link in my long list of useful Follow Up Boss links. But be sure you're in the success community. This video also streams live there, so you're welcome to ask Elizabeth and I questions in there as well after the fact. We're happy to answer some questions or throw a quick video on how to do things. But yeah, great job running it all down, Elizabeth. There's so much stuff, and this could easily be a
Yes,
4-hour webinar, but great job condensing it all.
easily. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we will wrap it up, but seriously, we'll do a 2.0. We'll let you
I'm
guys know.
heck yeah. Heck
We'll
yeah.
we'll get crazy fancy with stuff, but appreciate you guys being on, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining.